Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery and those listening at home. Please be seated while Councillor Lloyd delivers the blessing. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the awesome privilege you have given me and each and every one of us to serve our great city. May we live up to the positions entrusted to us by our community. Help us to have wisdom, integrity, sound judgment, and may our decisions tonight reflect a genuine commitment to the well-being of those we serve. As we navigate the complexities of governance tonight, Father, grant us the strength to uphold this commitment while having the courage to make the difficult decisions when necessary. Keep me always humble and grateful, and I offer this prayer in faith, trusting in your boundless love and mercy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Before we begin, I acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. It is now 7 p.m. and I declare the meeting open. Announcement of visitors. Welcome to our former Mayor, Mrs Olwensell, here this evening with us. And disclaimer I shall read, which is members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by city staff. record of attendance. We've got a few apologies this evening. Councillor Dalton is an apology. Councillor Dewhurst is an apology. Councillor Good is an apology, and the Deputy Mayor Adam Hort is an apology, and Councillor Good is not apology. He's right here online. I do apologise. Councillor Zhang is an apology as well. Lots of illnesses going around at the moment. So are there any disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest, thank you. No announcements by the presiding member. Any reports from delegates? Councillor McDonald, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to advise that on the 4th of April, the History and Heritage Advisory Group had our meeting, and I just wanted to firstly just acknowledge and thank our community representatives who do come along to all of those meetings, and also to our Heritage Coordinator staff who does a great job. And just to reinforce the objective of the group, which is to provide a community perspective on aspects of history and heritage within the care or control of the City of Gosnells. And some of the things we discussed was just around the Wilkinson Museum, what future plans may be in store, and also one of the things that we discussed was to clarify whether or not the museum qualifies for state or Lottery West funding. So we're looking into that, staff are looking into that. And also we want to encourage visitors to the museum, particularly community groups that would like to go along. So that ends my report. Thank you.
Any further reports from delegates? No. I will actually go back to announcements of presiding member, because apologies for forgetting to announce this, and that Mrs. Marinda Hanson, who is the president of the Langford Aboriginal Association, sadly her husband passed away just a week and a half ago, so we extend our sympathy to Mrs. Hanson, her family, and the Langford Aboriginal Association community on behalf of the councillors and staff at the City of Gosnells. Moving on, we move on to question time for public and receiving of public statements. Question time. We have Mrs. Leah Slizlak. She has 3 questions. Leah, if you would like to come forward. Leah's from 14 Gosnells Road East. Martin in Martin. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question 1. The public consultation letters that get sent out to neighbouring houses when an application is submitted, is there a plan to expand the consultation radius, especially in rural properties where the radius might only capture 1 to 2 properties?
Thank you for your question. I'll ask Director of Planning, Mr. Terrellink, to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The radius for public consultation is intended to capture those that might be affected, who are usually in close proximity. So with larger lots, there are often lesser properties in the consultation radius. So the radius does need to reflect the coverage of properties that are potentially directly affected by a proposed use. And the further the radius goes out, the less likelihood there is of that direct relationship between the development or use and a remote but interested resident.
So just to clarify, there's no plans to expand that area?
Sorry, not at this stage, no.
Thank you. Your next question, thank you.
When will local planning scheme number 24 be approved?
We'd like to know that as well, but I will see if the Director has got any update for us on that. Thank you.
Sadly, no, Madam Mayor. The fate of the planning schemes with the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, and we're working with them to try and encourage them to finalise the scheme as soon as possible.
Thank you. Your next question?
Thank you. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to try and remember it off my head.
I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. With the volume of non-compliant complaints coming from residents within the Orange Grove community, will Council appoint 1 to 2 main compliance team members who will have the time to designated to properly investigate these complaints?
Ask the Director, Acting CEO, Mr. Bradbrook, to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, we have compliance issues right across the city, which is quite a challenge for the compliance team, and we are looking at the resourcing within that team as part of the budget process, but any additional resources would need to be approved by council.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Barriolo from Victoria Road. If you'd like to come forward, thank you.
I don't have my questions. Mr. Bradbrook's got them, but I will try and remember them off the top of my head.
Would you like them, or are you happy to?
I think I'll remember them. Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you.
How many times has the City of Gosnells been made aware of commercial vehicles taking out the power lines within Precinct 1?
Your question is Victoria Road and Bickley Road.
I
May
know.
not be Precinct 1. So do you want Bickley Road or Precinct 1?
Let's just do Bickley Road.
Bickley Road. And I'll ask, oh, you've got it, have you? Director has got that information for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I don't have an exact number for you, but I certainly am aware of at least a handful of occasions where it's been reported to us that the power lines have been taken down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My second question is, when is the City of Gosnells going to do something about these commercial vehicles that are constantly, weekly, pretty much taking out the power lines? It's my 34th wedding anniversary tonight, and I'm here because I've got no power at home because the power lines have been taken out again. So the videos and photos have all been sent. So when is the City of Gosnells going to do something about this?
For your question, and happy anniversary to
Thank
you,
you.
Mrs. Barriolo, and I will ask the Director to once again respond to your question. Thank
Cheers,
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Vehicles that are taking out power lines are most likely oversized vehicles that are going to require main roads permits to operate on those roads. So really, all we're able to do is refer those issues to main roads because we don't regulate oversized vehicles using the local road network.
Thank you, Mrs. Barriolo. We'll now move on. There are no further questions, so we'll move on to public statement time, of which we have one from Jackson Tomich from Level 8, 1 William Street, and it's regarding item number 13.2.4 on page 23 of the agenda, which is a development application for the fast food outlet at Murdoch Road in Thornley. Thank you.
Dear Mayor and Councillors, thank you for your time this evening, and it's great to stand in front of you again. My name is Jackson Tomich, and I speak in relation to agenda item 13.2.4, the development application for a fast food outlet at 115 Murdoch Road, Thornley, this being the Forest Lakes Shopping Centre. I'm from Urbis and we're the project town planner. I'd like to thank the planning officers for their consideration and reporting on the proposal. The purpose of this statement is to express our full support for the officers' recommendation, to reiterate key compliance of the proposal and to address how this strategically aligns with the Forest Lakes vision. Having acquired the Forest Lakes Shopping Centre in 2022, Greenpool Capital is continuing the immediate investment into the centre to increase and diversify its offering to the local community. This application follows multiple other items of which has been presented to you recently. In particular, the recently approved motor vehicle wash and repair and the Forest Lakes Precinct Structure Plan, of which was recommended for approval by this council. This pipeline of investment into the shopping centre is now quite evident. From a technical perspective, the proposed land use is capable of approval on this site under the local planning scheme and demonstrates expected development for a shopping centre environment. Further, the location is in alignment with the as-supported draft Forest Lakes Precinct Structure Plan, being situated within an area earmarked for development in that plan. The proposal has been advertised to the local community with 12 submissions received. Only 2 of those were against the proposal. Operationally, this proposal will be unobtrusive to the surrounding catchment. A waste management plan was submitted as part of this proposal, outlining that there is sufficient capacity to manage the estimated waste generation from the site. This is by utilising appropriately sized bins and a private waste collection service. It is noted that in order to accommodate the proposal, there will be a net loss of 29 parking bays from the shopping centre. However, across the whole centre, there will still be an overall surplus for parking, being 12 bays. That number takes into account the recent motor vehicle repair and car wash approval as well, so that's a contemporary number. With regards to the recommended conditions, we are supportive of all of them and do not request any amendments. So I'd like to again extend my thanks to the Mayor, councillors and council staff for the time this evening and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Tomic. Next public statement is from Mrs Kathleen Edmonds from 72 Vulcan Road in Orange Grove, and it's referring to 13.2.2 on page 9 of the agenda.
Good evening, councillors, staff and Miss Mayor. Any non-rural pursuit, it's item 13.2.2. Any non-rural pursuit in a rural zone causes harm to other persons and affects the amenity of their lifestyle and property. I request Council defer a decision on this item until further investigation is completed. A development applicant may be accepted as making true and accurate statements. However, nothing in any act or planning legislation says development applications must be taken at face value without further investigation. Due diligence is the care that a reasonable person exercises to avoid harm to other persons or their property. Councillors, when sworn in, take an oath to fulfil their duty and obligations of a councillor. Councillors in WA have a duty to exercise due diligence when considering development applications. This stems from several legal provisions and guidance policies governing LGAs. Duty of care and performing due diligence requires evaluating the validity of statements and claims made by an applicant. Basic checks are vital if councillors are to make fully informed decisions and safeguard against foreseeable non-compliance events. ABN Lookup and ASIC are basic checks available to anyone and used extensively in business. My evaluation of basic business checks made on this application indicate the applicant is likely to be non-compliant. The Local Government Act 1995 Section 3.1 includes a broad mandate that councils must act in a responsible and diligent manner when making decisions that impact the community. The Act's associated regulations provide specific guidelines for decision making. In addition to the legal framework, WALGA has developed guidance policies and best practices that councils should adhere to. The policy decision-making in an environment of transparency emphasises careful evaluation of potential impacts of councillor decisions on the community. As a non-rural activity, this application erodes the ambience and amenity of the rural zone. It is adjacent to Carinya Equestrian Centre, opposite a play park and close to Orange Grove Primary School, increasing road danger to horse riders, children walking to and from school, do so largely without footpaths. As councillors in WA are legally and ethically obligated to exercise due diligence when considering development applications, I ask you again to defer this item for further investigation. I will also just add that originally, we have lived in Orange Grove, as everyone knows, 40 years now. And
I'll ask you to just make it quite brief.
It is
You've already
very
had
brief.
3 minutes, thank you.
Originally, the purpose of trucks being allowed in the area was people moved hay bales, people had stock feed. That was the truck use. It is very rapidly, in recent times, over the last 18 months to 2 years, becoming an area that all the trucks people think they can move into, be near the industrial area and get away with it, and it needs to stop. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs Edmonds. Now ask Mr Brad Davey from 14 Gosnells Road East in Martin, and he's speaking to item number 13.2.2, which is on page 9, which is the development application, once again, for the outbuilding. Thank you, Mr Davey.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Brad, and I'm here once again to protect our rural lifestyle in Orange Grove and ask you to reject the application for 13.2.2 for outbuildings, dome shelter and sea containers and commercial vehicle parking on 361 Maddington Road. There's been a lot of new councillors since I last came up to the stand and spoke about a matter similar to this. I have lived in the city of Gosnells my whole life. I come from a farming background. I completed the agricultural program at Kelmscott Senior High School and have always loved and wanted to live in the rural area with my family. Approximately 15 years ago, we purchased an industrial unit in the city of Gosnells in Maddington to pursue my hobbies of cars, which was purchased with the intent to carry out the industrial related works on the cars and hobby items. This comes at a cost of just under $10,000 a year with strata fees, etc. This does not even cover the outlay for the building, etc. So we can follow the correct zoning rules for the general rural properties. The applicants own an auto electrician business which has ample space in their business unit, which is zoned to accommodate their truck. There is no need for what they are requesting here. Why should I be the one that pays out of pocket for a hobby industrial shop to respect our rural lifestyle when these people are wanting to carry out industrial works, in my eyes, in the rural area? I'm not going to give you statistics on all the commercial applications because I'm sure you've heard it many times regarding the local planning policy and town planning scheme. But we know that all these development applications are because the land is purchased for a financial benefit and not a lifestyle. The application states the council has undertaken or has not undertaken an investigation into whether the works on the property is for personal use or commercial use. Yet you seek to approve the application with a high possibility that they are undertaking industrial works in the rural area, and I can't see how you can grant an approval without a full assessment of the situation. In the recent time, there has been 3 applications. These 3 applications are on the 3 opposing corners in this small block section of rural land. If one is approved, what's stopping the rest from being approved, leaving us an ugly industrial hub that does not suit the middle of our beautiful rural area? Once the rural area is diminished and lost, there'll be no way to get it back and lost forever. I wasn't going to give you a statistic, but in my passing on the property on Sunday and on my way home tonight, there's not only the truck that they have in question for the application, but there is also another 3 light commercial vehicles parked at the property with all signage on it. This just states that they're not here for the right reasons. They're obviously out there for commercial reasons. So I asked you to reject the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr Davey. Now move on to, that's the end of the public statements. There are no others, so move on to confirmation of minutes. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Adams and Councillor Betts to second that. Are there any questions or debate on the minutes, councillors? No? If you could please cast your votes. Thank you. That'll be the show of hands as well tonight. Thank you. That has been carried. Receiving of petitions or presentations. Councillor McDonald, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition here to seeking more cricket facilities for winter cricket, and the lead petitioner is Mr Mohammed Mansour on behalf of the Perth Bengal Cricket Club, and explains how there's been a significant growth to participation in winter cricket, and so they've submitted this petition, and so I seek to have the petition received by council tonight.
Happy to second that. Councillors, would you like to pass your votes? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Thank you. Do you have a question? Oh, did you? Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Thank you. Did you email it or did, yeah. Do you know who you emailed it to? Have you got a copy of it there? You can just come up and do it, that's fine. Thank you, that's okay. Go ahead with your public statement. I'm assuming it's item 13.2.2 on page 9 of the agenda.
It sure is, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I am here tonight to ask you to reject the application for 13.2.2. It was only a fortnight ago I was up here speaking to you all about my love for Orange Grove, the rural lifestyle and the community we have built here. The applicants of 361 Lot 5 Maddington Road Orange Grove, own an auto electrics business and also own a mixed business industrial unit on Belgravia Street in Belmont for this business. If the applicants are here for the right rural reasons, why would they submit an application for commercial vehicle parking to have their truck parked on their general rural zoned property when they have an industrial unit zoned for commercial parking? At one time, you can see multiple work utes, van, truck, parked on their property in Orange Grove, all with Lehman's Auto Electrics business signage on them. My understanding is this is also a light vehicle commercial parking, as well as a heavy vehicle commercial parking on this property. With the property adjacent to the Orange Grove Equestrian Club, heavy vehicles and horses are a dangerous combination. In the report, the applicant has stated that the dome shelter is proposed to be used for personal hobbies and storage, which includes repairs to personal vehicles. Why can't they carry out these hobbies and vehicle repairs at their industrial unit? My understanding is because they are carrying out industrial works from the property. Industrial works cannot be carried out on a rural property. As the applicant has applied for the outbuilding to be used for domestic purposes only, these submissions are to be further investigated as a separate matter by the city. How can an application be approved when further investigation is required and has not been completed to seek out any non-compliance occurring on the property? Approving an application will result in the Compliance Department being required to follow up on complaints of non-compliance and at worst potentially undermining the integrity of the development approval process. It places an unfair onus on rural zone residents to make reports to the already stretched compliance team. Department on non-compliance use. I ask you again, please reject application 13.2.2. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. We've actually found a couple of other questions here. I just wonder if there might be a Paneet Verma from 11 Abrolhos Loop in Beckenham here? No? Okay, we'll carry on with those at another time. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We will move on to... Sorry, I thought Peter said something. Applications for leave of absence. Are there any? No, thank you. There's no questions which due notice has been forwarded. So we'll move on to item 13.1.1, which is the Greening Gosnells, our Public Tree Strategy Progress Report. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Betts to move that. Councillor Islam to second that. Do you have any questions or debate on this, councillors? No? If you'd like to cast your vote. Councillor Williamson, are you all right? Do you need a minute? Okay, that has been carried. Moving on to 13.2.1, the development application for the family daycare at 24 Lot 2020 Liffey Street, Canning Vale. Can I get a mover? Councillor Adams to move that. Councillor Baines to second that. Any debate or questions on this item, councillors? No? If you would like to cast your vote, thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. 1 second, thank you, councillor. Moving on to 13.2.2, the development application for the outbuilding at the Dome Shelter and Sea Container and Commercial Vehicle Parking at 361 Lot 5 at Maddington Road, Orange Grove. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Betts to move this and a seconder. Councillor Adams to second this. Councillor Betts, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The applicant put in an application in retrospect for the sea container plus the big dome that has been put there, which I think is 7.5 metres high. My wife and I went for a drive out there on Sunday just to have a look, and that massive dome is very, very imposing and certainly gives the feeling of industrial kind of use. And therefore I don't believe that that's appropriate. It's not visible from Maddington Road really, but certainly from Grant Street it hits you in the face. And so I would certainly agree with the staff recommendation that the dome needs to be removed. It's not appropriate in that kind of setting. In terms of the commercial vehicle parking, the staff recommendation is that we approve that, and it's just for one commercial vehicle, and a commercial vehicle under the regulations, as I understand it, is a vehicle that has a carrying capacity of more than 1.5 tonnes. So passenger vehicles, utes, say Toyota Hiace van, that type of thing, there is no limit to how many a person can have on their property. A family with, say, 6 boys could very easily have mum and dad's car, plus each of the boys having a car, and that's perfectly acceptable in a residential area. It's acceptable in the rural residential area as well. There is, when I drove past, there was certainly my guess would be perhaps a 3-tonne truck with the signage of the business on it, and there was I'm not sure what brand it was, like a Hiace type of van with signage on it. There was a Land Cruiser ute with a big speedboat kind of thing behind it, and a bobcat, and so it does look quite, lots of activity, a bit like a mechanical kind of a place, but driving around the area in Orange Grove, there's quite a number of properties that have big sheds and some farm machinery, bobcats, that type of thing, on their grounds. So I don't think a small truck, granting permission for that small truck to be parked there, that allows the owners who live there to go to work and go to wherever they got to go and come home without first having to drop a truck and then change into a vehicle and come back home. And I don't think that's unreasonable. The question that's been raised by some of the public statements is the issue of, well, will they comply? But that's actually not for us to make it. We cannot make a decision on what we think about that they may not comply. We can only make a decision on the basis of what is applied for, and if they fail to adhere to that, that then becomes the job of the compliance team to actually enforce that. If we make a decision based on what we think they might do, they can go to the State Administrative Tribunal and they would take no regard of what we think they might do because it's purely on what's before us in terms of what they're actually applying for. So I think the recommendation from the staff is reasonable. It includes the dismantling of the big dome, which is really quite inappropriate. But I think for a small truck to be parked there and the fact that they cannot operate their business from there, that they're not applying for that. So if they were to do that, again, that would be a compliance issue to be dealt with later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betts. Turn that off. Is there any further debate? Councillor McDonald, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly take the point that Councillor Betts makes with respect to basing a decision on a potential suspected future non-compliance, and that this development application is for future use of the area. But I just make the point, and I don't necessarily conclude that I base any decision that the council may make, that past behaviour is a true indicator of future behaviour. And at the moment, as we all know, the applicant is in a non-compliant state with respect to the situation at that location. But what I want to make the point is that, in respect of amenity, I just make the point that the subject site is proposed to be rezoned to rural residential, and the objectives of rural residential zoning include for limited rural pursuits, but also maintaining the rural character and amenity of the locality. And I note that staff have gone to lengths with respect to its recommendations to ensure that screening is implemented. However, I'm not comfortable that screening actually maintains the rural character of the areas. So I don't support this recommendation from staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Lloyd, thank you.
I just wanted to seek a point of clarification. We're talking in two different languages here about future use application, but a retrospective one. So which one is it? Is it about a decision made for the past or one for the future?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Mayor's correct. This is it's an application before you with a number of elements to it, and you're being asked whether you support or don't support that application. That issue and that task is quite different to the compliance task, because the compliance task is focused on what has been occurring up to this time. In terms of the matters that we're obliged to recommend that you consider, they're covered by the planning regulations. Planning and Development Regulations of 2015 talk about a number of matters that need to be considered when decision making, and they all relate to adopted policy and planning frameworks and those kinds of issues. They don't relate to the past behaviour of applicants, because in some cases an applicant might get a visit from the director's compliance officers, and then they curtail their activity and bring it into conformity with the scheme. And I think we do have a track record of success in some cases of doing that. So that really supports the contention that you really ought to just be looking at this application on its merit. There might be other things going on. The guys have been there before, and I think they'll be going again to see if everything is okay as it is.
Did you want to speak to the item, Councillor Lloyd? Anybody? I'm happy to speak to the item, and I'm all for keeping Orange Grove rural, as we know we've got an audience that is very keen on having that happen as well, and we have shown, this council has shown that is our intention, to keep Orange Grove rural. But as it stands, we have a policy, and if it fits in the policy, then we really need to approve it. The officers have recommended to remove this shelter, which it is obtrusive, and that is part of this recommendation, which I will be supporting. But right now, as it stands, we have a policy, and if people of the community don't agree with our policy, then that's what they should be advocating to change, if that's what they want for Orange Grove. But that's up to them what they want to do on that. But currently, we have the policy, we have to abide by the policy, so therefore I will be supporting the officer's recommendation on this item. Thank you. Is there any further debate or questions? Councillor Petts, did you want to close? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to sum up, I think the desire to keep Orange Grove rural and keep that amenity, I think is something that I think all of us around this table, I'm sure in the audience also fully support. I think it's important to note that the staff recommendation includes the fact that the commercial vehicle must be located behind the street setback line and suitably screened from all boundary lines of the property to the satisfaction of the City of Gosnells, which means it won't actually be visible from the road. And driving around Orange Grove, I think you'll find there's plenty of commercial vehicles that are very visible from the road. So this is actually going to be better than many of the other properties in the area if they comply with it. And if they don't, that's up to the rangers to deal with. There's no... part two of the recommendation is that it does not permit the loading or unloading of commercial vehicle or the storage of goods. So again, they can't unload the truck and load it. So again, the concern about them actually sort of running the business from there and loading things, if they do it, they're breaking what we are actually allowing them to do, and that becomes a compliance matter. And again, the sea container has to be screened from view of the adjacent properties and roadways to the satisfaction of the city, so that again helps to maintain the amenity, and within 60 days the big dome has to be removed. So I'm comfortable with that, and I would encourage councils to support staff recommendations, and I think once that's put through and implemented in 60 days' time, when that dome comes down and the screening is in place, I believe that we've done the right thing in terms of maintaining the amenity of the area. Thank you.
Councillor Betts, can I get a show of hands for who's in support of the officer's recommendation? Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That has been carried, councillors. Thank you. 13.2.3, the development application for the transport depot at 307 Lot 1 Kenwick Road in Maddington. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Baines to move this and Councillor Williamson to second it. Councillor Baines, would you like to speak to this? Councillor Williamson, anybody else? Thank you, councillors. Will you please cast your vote? Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.2.4, the development application for the fast food outlet at 115 Lot 102 Murdoch Road in Thornley. Can I get a mover? Councillor McDonald to move this. Councillor Adams to second this. Councillor McDonald, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Adams? Anybody else would like to speak to this item? Thank you, councillors. Please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.4.1, the Special History and Heritage Advisory Group meeting on the 14th of March 2024. Can I get a mover? Councillor Adams to move this and Councillor McDonald to second this. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to this? Councillor McDonald? Anybody else? No. Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. There are 13.5, there is nothing. 14, there's no motions of which previous notice has been given. No urgent business. With confidential matters on the agenda, councillors, can I get a mover to close the meeting? Thank you. Councillor Baines to move that and Councillor Williamson to second that. Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. I declare the meeting closed at 7:37. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you very much for your attendance this evening. You're welcome to wait until we finish the confidential items and come back in. Not sure how long that will be, so could I ask you to kindly take your leave. Thank you.